Hey, Stoney here with another game of Mechabellum, and in this game you'll see multiple pivots between two high MMR players, and we'll eventually settle into a very familiar position. Let's find out what that is. Let's go. At the bottom here, I'm playing as a Rhino Specialist, and I am up against Corner playing as a Aerial Specialist. Now, I do want to try my super wide Sledge arc-light formation. I've had some success. This is right now a 50-50, probably losing a little bit more than winning. The way that this works is you kind of stretch out your Sledge lines. You're going to put Sledge on the side here, another one on here, protect it with chaff, hit Mech Rage, and then the Sledge will just rush to the tower very quickly. And then in the mid-game, you want to supplement your Sledges with boats and mobile beacon into the tower. My opponent Corner is playing Stonecrawlers, Crawlers, and of course a single marksman just in case I do anything funny. Both of our MMR right now is around mid 1800. Alright, so looking at round one here, looks like it's going to be a pretty rough case to crack here with the Stonecrawlers, but I might get a very decent tower time in here, and if I do, I should be able to bring these Stonecrawlers down. Here we go. Alright, great first round, great initiative. Round two, mass-produced Overlord is offered. My opponent is aerial spec, which means he can bring out a Overlord and a Chaff in this round. I decided to take the missile. The missile right here with the Stonecrawlers and the Crawlers is just too juicy to miss. The Overlord went down. I was anticipating the Overlord, but I wasn't sure what my answer would be, because the most I can bring onto the board would be a single marksman, and that marksman is probably going to get killed by some of these Stonecrawlers. So might as well develop my board a little bit more, knowing that I may not have a good way to defend the Overlord. So instead, I'm just going to continue on with more ground units. Added a single Crawler and a Sledgehammer here in the flank. Alright, my opponent decided to put the Overlord all the way on the flank here, targeting my Arclight. And of course, there's going to be a cheeky Crawler all the way on the bottom left as well. My flank is getting taken over at the top, but the tanks do spawn, and I am going to get a tower. Once we get both towers, just a matter of time before the Overlord cleans everything else up. Alright, we're looking to round three. Round three cards, quick supply is offered, and well, quick teleport rather. I'm going to take the quick teleport, and I'm going to see if I can develop a little bit more onto the flanks here. So far, it seems to be wide open, so my opponent might reinforce it, but I want to see if there's an opportunity. Being an aerial spec, he unlocked the wasp, and now the wasp is going towards the tower. Should be okay. I bought my own Overlords. It's a bit expensive. I have to spend the 200 resource to unlock it. But it should provide adequate defense against the Wasp and also against everything else. And it also sets up the board for later on if I do want to make a push with the Chain Gun Overlord. Alright, getting into round four. But a unit drop here, I think the melting point is going to be the answer. But for now, it's going to be steel balls because I want to make sure I have a bit more meat at the front. For my opponent, I think Fire Badger would be a great option. Right now, he's weak in Chaff Clear, so the Fire Badger fills that hole perfectly. Looking at my board here, this is a very wacky game, so a lot of big opening holes on both sides, and my opponent is taking advantage of it first by bringing these wasp, and it's going to be jump drive and mobile beacon towards the tower. It's almost impossible at round 4 to defend all of your vectors unless you simply just abandon everything and just get a tower upgrade. But ultimately, I still need to answer these double squad of wasps. And I don't have enough upshoot. Right now it's just a single Overlord. Alright, there's going to be more wasps on the side here, and these wasps, it is indefensible here onto the tower. They will get tower, but it seems like I should be able to at least hold off this level 2 marksman for a little bit. Let's see how much damage those wasps will actually do. Fire badgers are doing great at clearing out my crawlers here. And here comes the wasps. Oh, lucky tower. Right, getting those units. Now the boat's coming over. I think with the steel balls tanking the damage, I should be able to do a decent damage, but not unless those 2 wasps get the tower, and they do. Means I feel like this boat is all but doomed at this moment. A close one though. Alright, something to watch out for when you have a complex board like this is where's your strong side and where's your weak side. And also where your opponent's strong and weak sides are. Alright, so it's going to be drill coming down from my opponent because he realized that last round I actually took replicate. So he wants to get rid of my replicate, and instead of going replicate himself, which is slightly more expensive, he just decided to go with drill. Alright, so it's my turn to answer these jump drive wasps, and this is going to be 3 raids and a cheeky missile just to plug the hole here. If you're the wasp player, just be very careful of cheeky missiles because it can destroy your entire cluster if you're not careful. So a good way to go about this is just to space out the first group of your wasps by 2 squares, like what the corner is doing right now. So this allows the first group to tank that cheeky missile, and then the rest of the group are still going to be on their path towards the target. So that's exactly what's going to happen. I was really debating where these wasps are going to be coming from. I know there's 2 holes here, right in the middle. I had my Wraith closer to the center at first, but I was afraid that he was going to do like a split action. So he's going to get a split wasp here and then another wasp on the other side. That's why I had it on slightly to the left to support my army. My 2 Wraith at the back here needed to be there for defense because my opponent's got drill onto these crawlers, which means I may need a bit of support. And he's also adding fire badgers in the corner as well. Alright, let's see how this works. The wasps are coming in. The missile first targets the first squad. Got the first squad, but the second squad is still making their way towards the tower here. However, these Wraith with range are doing a bang-on job of clearing out this wasp even under tower debuff, and it's helping out with chaff clear as well. So eventually, I will transition out of my sledgehammers of chaff clear and into ranged Wraiths. Now, when you're running ranged Wraiths, one thing to be very careful is melting point. It's just going to ruin your day. So I feel like this game is transitioning into a very familiar composition, which is the ball Wraith aggro. I mean, right now, I'm not exactly playing aggro. A lot of my units are in the back, but I do have the opportunity of transitioning into that direction. So let's see if this works. Melting point is offered, and of course my opponent is going to take melting point. And for now, I need to answer the melting point with my own melting point until my board is more stabilized. So we both took the melting point, and we both are going to take range on it. Alright, here's range for my opponent. And I added another melting point. I was concerned that there's going to be a double melting point situation. Now, in a melting point versus melting point fight, chaff clear is absolutely the most important thing, which is why sometimes you want to have super late chaff clear, just coming in super late, distracting the melting point, allowing your units to hit the target. So my opponent is finally splitting up the wasps, which is great. I've also plugged the hole with the Wraith. So right now, these 4 Wraith has complete coverage of every single inch of the board. All right, no more cheeky wasp plays. taking care of the left-hand side since there's no melting point here. But right here in the middle, we do have a big melting point and it's locking onto the wraith. And of course, there's the level 2 marksman doing a lot of work. There's also the phoenixes, which are newly bought this round. And the phoenixes should also do a great job at cleaning up my units. So just overall, a lot of overlapping roles, right, for the same purpose. For my opponent, he's got the marksman, got the melting point, got the phoenix. Mass-produced Sledge is actually very interesting. It allows you to use sledgehammers as chaff, and because they're so good at chaff clear, they can actually be used pretty effectively that way. Right now, my big problem is just this melting point, because if I go mass-produced Sledges, then the melting point could just go multi-melter, and all of a sudden, all my sledgehammers will be under attack. So we have to be very careful of what we want to do here. And the other thing we can do is try for steel balls. Steel balls do take on melting points fairly well. So we can try with steel balls with energy absorption. I should be able to get to the melter. Okay, but for now, we're just going to have some late arriving chaff in the form of these fangs. My opponent is expected to get another melting point. I want to move my crawlers out of this area because of the fire badger, so it's just essentially a waste by just keeping the crawler here because they would not contribute too much. My rate here is more than sufficient in taking care of these level 2 fire badgers, so it's time to get them out of there and potentially selling them later on. Alright, my opponent bought even more phoenixes. And now with range and electromag, and that's going to cause a lot of trouble because a lot of my units are not only going to be disabled, they're going to be slow as well. All right, 2 phoenixes are coming down to the flank, but luckily I already have late arriving wasp waiting. The wasp is really there for the coverage against the melting point, so it allows my wraith to survive a little bit longer. And the longer my wraith survives, the more chance I have to go after his melting point with my own. So it's a win-win situation when we have these late arriving wasps. All right, melting point on the left doing a lot of work. Fortunately, his melting point also was doing a lot of work locking onto my boat here. Right now, our HP is very similar, which means nobody really has an edge. But as the game develops, I feel like my opponent has a slight edge because of the possibility of going for multi-melter. Alright, we got another unit drop. Mustangs are great cards and Typhoon are great cards. Typhoon provides a great chaff clear and front line, and it walks fairly slowly, which means going to walk at the same speed as my melting point. The steel balls right now, I think they're not really doing much. What I really want to clear are these medium-sized units, so I'm going to take missile on the melting point. It will give me a lot of damage and clear out those medium-sized units, and hopefully later on it can also deal the melting point. My opponent took the Mustangs. It got range and anti-air. Anti-air is specifically designed to deal with the with the wraiths. I think it's time to sell this boat as well. I think it's outlived its usefulness. It's really not doing much at this moment. We got a massive wraith flank, but not into range. Massive wasp flank rather, but I already have a range wraith waiting, so that's fine. But the problem, though, is that this particular wraith is not really helping with the chaff clear at the front here, which means my level 3 steel balls are stuck at shooting crawlers for the longest time. Alright, finally the steel balls are cutting through, but it's a little too late, and we already have the Mustangs onto my melting point. Alright, so going to be bombard for both sides. Bombard and oil. I took armor on the steel balls and I added even more steel balls because of the level 3 and level 2 Mustangs. Now, these Mustangs are going to be a trouble against the wraiths, so the steel balls are going to offer protection. So this is kind of a weird steel ball wraith aggro with typhoons, with melting point. I sold the boat expecting some sort of bombard shenanigan going on, And I just continue to improve my board here at the bottom. All right, cheeky missile at the bottom right as well, just to get rid of those wasps in case my opponent decided to keep them. All right, there's a big battle going on, so we're gonna slow down just a little bit here. We got tons of wasp here, well, tons of wraith actually. Just getting onto target, and the melting point we have to shoot individual steel balls, which takes forever. It means my wraith will actually be able to get tower, and now moving over to the other side. Whenever you see this sort of inefficiency, one instinct is when you're into medium-sized units, you just want to click that multi-melter button. It's such a great button. It's going to be expensive though, because his melter is already teched twice, which means if he does click multi-melter, he'll have to pay an extra 400 supply of resource. All right, big round here for me. Again, very similar HP here, but I don't really have an answer against multi-melter. I can expect the multi-melter happening this round, but honestly, I don't have an answer for it. For me right now, I just want to make sure that my wraith clears chaff as quickly as possible so that my melter could actually lock onto his melter. And in order to do that, I'm just going to add a couple more wraiths, and hopefully that they'll punch through, right, these Mustangs and also the Fire Badgers, and provide my steel balls with the necessary opportunity to get onto that melter. All right, here goes the multi-melter on my opponent's board. And one huge distinction between my opponent's boards and mine is that he's got all the EMP. He's got EM on the melters, he's got EM on the phoenixes. I don't have EM anywhere, which means at some point we're gonna have some problems later on, because he's just EMing my melter and he's able to outrange my melter, where I am unable to do the same for him. Man, all my chaff evaporated at the front. That includes my steel balls, which means this melting point is going to be on target, and my opponent is going to take this game. Very well played game here by my opponent. I think the biggest breaking point was really just the EM and also the multi-melter. I've made a few inefficient decisions in this game as well. For example, the boat here was never followed up on. I could have gone with just mass-produced, or not mass-produced, just many sledges with mech rage and boat, but that was never followed up on. I was way too distracted by those wasps, so I ended up pivoting into Wraith Ball, which in the end may not be the most efficient board for my opponent. And also, the choice on getting these Typhoons with the homing missile probably wasn't the greatest one. I mean, these Typhoons, this one on the left actually did a lot of damage, but overall, I don't need to take that second missile. I think the shield was sufficient, and I could have used that money to maybe get EM on my own melting point as well. All right, so if you enjoyed this video, well, first of all, thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, here is another one for you, and I will see you on the next one.
Prepare your tactics, Mechabellum's calling. Deploy your fortress, the battlefield's alive with